Hey folks, I'm Sir Vainglory here with my 13th Anatomy of a Battle video, and this one's a battle between the 352nd Infanterie Division and the 6th Airborne Division on the Carpiquet Duellists map. So it's another ranked 1v1 battle, and it was the first outing for the 352nd Infantry battle group that I'd built. So going into the ranked battle and seeing the wide open spaces of the Carpiquet map, I was dreading another fight against an armoured division, so I was actually glad to see that my opponent instead was bringing the 6th Airborne. The obvious scenario here is that the Paras have been dropped behind the front lines to take the airfield, and the 352nd is moving in to defend it. So there's not much to say about this map. Lots of wide open spaces, some scattered cover, and obviously an advance across the wide open space in the middle of the map, but either side would be suicidal, and I thought we were most likely to both go for the flanks and clash there. For me, the left flank looked the best to attack from, with the grouping of the buildings and the trees, whereas attacking into the buildings on the right flank would be more difficult for me. So I sent my forces forward in two main groups, one to hold the ground on the right and the other to secure a jumping off point for my attack on the left. And just in case the British tried the unexpected, I sent an MG42, an Infanterie Geschütze 18 and a Fusilier squad to cover the centre, with a plan to shift them either left or right to provide support as needed. So the forces on both sides consisted of a handful of infantry squads, a command section and an Aufklärer section. The infantry on the right were all the stronger grenadiers to give them a better chance to hold without needing reinforcement, while there were a few of the disheartened Osttruppen on the force on the left. And as I was anticipating a lot of aircraft, I spent the last of my points on a Flak 38 instead of the mortar that I often bring. So with the infantry securing the hangars, I pushed the Aufklärer forward on each flank. The section on the right was the first to spot the enemy moving close, but we also observed trucks moving out to the left. Over on the right hand flank, a British recce jeep pushed towards my Aufklärer, and it was engaged by the Aufklärer and by the Kübelwagen's machine gun. I was able to take that jeep out, but you can see that there's a rifle squad in the trees in the distance, so I pulled my men back behind the trees to avoid fire from the British infantry. On the left flank, the Aufklärer that were pushing to reach the trees encountered a command Tetrarch and the two trucks. It engaged one of the trucks, which disgorged its infantry, and they destroyed my scouts. So I've secured my initial positions and I'm now waiting for my reinforcements to move up. I'm going to bring up a Panzerschreck to give me some anti-tank capability in the trees on the left, and two mortars to complete my holding force on the right. The British infantry on the left is pushing forward towards the trees, and I've spotted a mortar also moving to the left, so I think that's where their main push is going to come. But a 6-pounder appears on the right and engages the Kübelwagen and takes it out. And this is followed up by a Pathfinder Mosquito attack. It comes in and targets one of my Grenadier squads holding the right. The damage doesn't seem too bad at first, but the ongoing casualties from the fire eventually wipes out the entire squad. On the left, the airborne scouts push forward with support and fire from the command Tetrarch, but the scouts are suppressed and forced to fall back. Back on the right side, the British push forward after the Mosquito attack with a couple of rifle squads, a scout sniper and mortar support. One of the rifle squads is engaged by my Aufklärer here, and it's reduced to half strength before it's able to kill off my two scouts. So I have one of my mortars target that rifle squad since it's already on the way to suppression, and the other one targets the sniper, as I think that's more likely to be an immediate threat to me. And while that engagement's going on the right, over on the left, the British rifles begin pushing in towards my position. I'm aware that the British had infantry in the trees, so I've had some of my reinforcements hold back to engage them if they appeared. I've got another IG-18, a Panzer III command tank there, along with a Pak 38. One of the rifle squads pushes in close but becomes suppressed and falls back. However, the command Tetrarch there is moving forward to provide support, and that will help the Paras to recover their morale. been a 6-pounder is being pushed forward, and as it's no good against soft targets, I wonder whether my opponent's new to playing the British or whether it was caught up in by accident in a group selection. On the left, a rifle squad breaks cover from the trees right in front of my Panzer III, and it's pinned by fire from the tank and an Osttrooping squad and forced to fall back. I push the Panzer III forward to pursue the retreating enemy, and that forces the riflemen to move towards my positions where they eventually surrender. So I've brought up a mortar on the left which begins shelling the rifle section that had retreated earlier, and the British command tank's now been pulled back, removing its support for the infantry, and I think they were perhaps worried about losing their tank to my Panzer III. On the right, my infantry forces back the rifle squad, while the mortars target the 6-pounder. The anti-tank gun's not an immediate threat, but it's still a high value target and worth taking out, as I do plan to bring vehicles in on this flank later. So the British advance on the right has been sent into retreat, and I think their force on the left is too weak to continue its advance, so I now concentrate on building up a force on the left myself to make my own attack. The British mortar on the right had been shelling my troops, so I had my mortars do some counter battery fire on it, and over in the distance on the left we spot another tank moving forward, probably another Tetrarch. To counter that Tetrarch, I send my Panzer STRIX section to take up position in a building by the road on the left. Unfortunately, the rifle squad that was in the trees moved into the building as my men approached and cut them down. But I now have my Pak-38 and the Panzer III in position to cover the open ground ahead of my position on the left, and my IG-18 covering the left flank. But it looks like the British are intent on pushing forward behind the clump of trees on the left, so I reposition my Panzer III to support the field gun, and I also have my mortar there to provide support if necessary. The rifle section that was in the trees reappears back in the building, and it's fired on by my infantry Geschütze, and my Pak-38 in the hangars also gets a shot off on the command Tetrarch, and that would have repercussions shortly. So the rifle section finally pulls back into the cover of the trees under fire from my mortar, but you can see there are more reinforcements heading in that direction. It looks like the British have decided to push hard on the left and bring in a Pathfinder Mosquito to support the attack, and it targets my Pak-38 and takes it out. I'd brought an ME-109 in to try and catch the Mosquito, unsuccessfully, so I sent it to strafe a mortar that had been shelling my positions on the left instead, and I've also ordered my IG-18 and MG-42 from the centre to move left and support that flank. The command Tetrarch appears to be trying to bypass my position without support, so I have my Panzer III waiting for it to emerge from behind the trees, and have my mortar shell the trucks to try and hold up any infantry advance and prevent them from supporting the British tank. When the Tetrarch comes into view, it's immediately engaged by my Panzer III, and it also gets into line of sight of my IG-18, and that proves too much for it, so it falls back into cover. So some British riflemen and a P8 team now appear in the trees, but my IG-18 and the Panzer III are dealing with them quite comfortably, along with the Osttrooping squad. The P8 team doesn't last long at all. But because of the strength of the British attack on the left, I've brought in a Nebelwerfer, and its attack brings back memories of the Wolframen attacks I suffered in my last battle. So the Nebelwerfer does a fair bit of damage, but a Pathfinder squad braves the barrage and gets into close contact with one of my Osttrooping squads. But fortunately, support and fire from the IG-18 and a Grenadier squad helps to break the Pathfinder's morale, and because they're in such close contact, they surrender. So the mortar had been shelling my troops, but the IG-18 and the MG-42 from the centre are able to suppress it eventually. my IG-18 did take some damage from the mortar itself earlier on in the battle. So they're able to suppress the mortar and it falls back, and the IG-18 then turns its attention onto the carrier recce that was moving up along the road there, and a few shots are able to force it to retreat, and then it eventually manages to take out the carrier. So I've got good vision over the left, and I can see that the British units that had pushed forward are now isolated. So I push a grenadier squad over to the trees on the left to try and flush out the British that I know are still holding there. We do find another rifle squad in the trees, and it comes under heavy fire from my infantry, the IG-18, and also a Marder 2 that I've been bringing in. And even with the morale boost from the Command Tetrarch, the infantry is quickly pinned and forced to retreat. So I've continued to push my infantry forward, and it's engaged by the Tetrarch. The rifle squad continues to fall back, and it's fired on by my Marder. So you can see here that more British reinforcements are being trucked forward, but my IG-18 and the MG-42 dominate that road. Unfortunately, the reinforcement here is a Tri-Polston, and it's able to take out the IG-18 while the field gun shell is arcing over to take it out. Over on the right now, the British had a group of 3 trucks sitting way out on the right flank for a couple of minutes doing nothing, and I think he thought they were hidden as I hadn't been shelling them, but that was just because my mortars were out of ammo. So I brought in another Nebelwerfer over there to prevent them from launching another attack. And with the British lacking troops to relieve their isolated units on the left, they've brought in a couple of artillery pieces to provide them with some fire support. They also brought in an Oyster to spot for the guns, so I sent my MU-109 to deal with that. The Oyster was a bit of a ruse though, because while my fighter dealt with the Oyster, a Mosquito slipped in to attack my ground units. So the Mosquito was targeting my mortar this time, and also caught a newly arrived ammo truck that's just out of shot there, but fortunately they both survived the attack. And while that had been going on, there had been a firefight between a rifle squad on the left flank and my grenadier squad in the trees. A Tempest had also made a strafing run in the grenadiers, but it was shot down by my ME-109. The rifles were forced to fall back, but my grenadiers' morale broke and they surrendered to the Tetrarch, or not to the rifle squad. A convoy of British reinforcements was spotted heading for the left, while I pushed a grenadier squad out to the right flank to flush out the half squad of rifles I knew were lurking there somewhere. We spotted the rifle squad in the trees on the very edge of the map, and used a Pak-40 to support the attack on them. The Pak-40 doesn't have much HE capability, but it's got some. The rifles appeared to be well dug in though, and wasn't suffering much suppression. My grenadiers on the other hand were beginning to suffer, so I had them head for cover in the trees, but a Vickers HMG that had survived the Nebelwerfer barrage pinned them in the open. 2 Marder 2s joined my force on the left, and I also had a Schwerkanon 18 in the centre shelling the latest British reinforcements. On the right it looks like the British are trying to push forward again. There's a machine gun jeep moving forward. So the advancing British infantry forced my grenadiers to surrender, but my Pak-40 destroys the jeep just as it's coming into range. So with that gone, the few troops that the British had on the right were easily dealt with by my concentrated grenadiers and the supporting Pak-40. And back over on the left, they're trying to again to push forward in that wooded area, and I've realised that my SK-18 was actually firing at a grid reference rather than targeting a specific unit, which I think was something that happened with a few of my artillery barrages. We're close to halfway through the battle now, and I decide to push forward on the right as it appears very thinly held, so I call in a STUG 3 to support the advance over there. I spot some British units moving forward, but I expect the STUG, along with my mortars and Nebelwerfer, will have no problem suppressing them. So the British bring in another Oyster, and again I send my 109 to deal with that. Some support there from the flak gun, and there's no follow-up by a Mosquito or anything this time. However, the British howitzer is still shelling my positions, so I send the Messerschmitt down to strafe that instead. My opponent seemed to like the tactic of driving his trucks forward until they were engaged and then dismount the troops automatically, and he did it again here on the right, and the reinforcements this time ran into fire from my pack. I took out the last of the trucks. Over on the left, knowing that there are British units beyond the trees, I have the Nebelwerfer barrage planned for that area, but the British infantry launches an attack in strength from the trees before it can come in. My Osttroppen squad has support from the Panzer III, but it's still quickly eliminated because of the weight of fire. Then, just in time, the rocket barrage comes in, putting an end to that attack. I don't have very much to spare over there just now, and I know there's still a rifle squad over on the left somewhere, but I decide to push forward an Osttroppen squad, the IG-18 and my Panzer III, to try to force the retreating British to surrender, or at least to clear them out and take possession of the tree line. And I leave a Marder to guard against the infantry that's pushed up the left flank. So you can see in the background that my 109 is still strafing the howitzer, but another one opens up, so I move my Panzer III over to boost the morale of the infantry and the IG-18. A heavy machine gun is spotted in the trees just in front of us, and it's engaged by my MG42 before the IG-18 destroys it. Quite like the IG-18, it's quite a good gun. I've moved my Panzer III now into a position to cover the left flank and also to try to get line of sight on the artillery, but unfortunately it's taken out by a direct shot from a 17-pounder. On the far left, the British rifles have recovered their morale and they advance again, but my Osttroppen and the IG-18 have them covered. However, a Pathfinder squad then appears and engages my units, so I begin moving a Marder up to give them some support. Another Pathfinder Mosquito attack comes in, which, along with fire from the howitzers, takes out the infantry, the IG-18 and also the Marder. The Marder drives forward into the fire, takes damage, loses morale, reverses and blows up. Fortunately though, I had called in more infantry reinforcements to begin pushing forward on the left, and they're able to plug the gap that's suddenly appeared in my lines, along with another STUG 3. It looks like the British are determined to break me on the left now, and they're moving in what looks like a Cromwell 6, a Cromwell 4 command tank and a Challenger, along with a Staghound scout car. They can cause me real problems if they can link up with the Pathfinders on the left flank, and especially with support and fire from the howitzers and the 17-pounder, so there's a lot to deal with there. I have my infantry and my mortar trying to deal with the Pathfinders, while the Marder 2 targets one of the howitzers. Luckily the British tanks don't advance, but they stop and in the open, and all three fire on my flak Vierling. But the British tanks eventually begin to advance past the end of the runway, and my STUG 3 is pinned on the left flank by artillery fire, but I move my Marder out towards the right to try and offer some resistance. I also bring in a Ju-88 to bomb the tanks and halt their advance, and the attack manages to cause the two Cromwells to fall back. But the 17-pounder's been pushed forward and it targets my Marder, taking it out with a couple of shots. Over on the right flank, my Stug 3 there engages more infantry that's been brought up, and then a Nebelwerfer barrage pins them down. So the Stug 3 continues to target the infantry squads that remain, and I push my own infantry forward now to take advantage of the suppression that's been caused by the barrage. On the left, the Challenger and the Staghound begin pushing in. The tank is engaged by my SIG-33, and my units on the left begin to recover from suppression and eliminate the last of the British infantry over there. My Stug 3 is now free to help deal with the British armour and starts by taking out the Staghound. But as it moves forward, the British howitzer suppresses my SIG-33, and the Stug is then targeted by all three British tanks. Takes a hit there without taking any damage, but then there's another few sort of near misses, and I decide to pull the Stug back into cover and lay smoke with the mortar to block the ranged shots from those tanks. Just want to keep my Stug safe for now. To buy myself some time, I have the Nebelwerfer firing the tanks, hoping just to suppress them and hold them back for a bit. But this particular barrage isn't that effective. So the Cromwell does retreat, but the command tank and the Challenger both charge into my positions. And like with the 6-pounder earlier, I wonder whether my opponent's inexperienced with the British deck, or if he knows that my infantry don't have any anti-tank weapons. I do have Ju-87Gs though, and I bring in one that takes out the command tank in its first pass. And I then swing the plane round for another pass, this time targeting the Challenger. Challenger's obviously a bit tougher tank, but the shots do force it to fall back. Its morale is broken and it surrenders to an Austrian squad in the hangar there. So I bring the Stuka around for a third pass and targeting the command Cromwell now, and its shots force the Cromwell to fall back, and it's heading into the sights of my Stug, but the Stuka finishes the job. The 17-pounder then reappeared and engaged my Stug. They exchanged some shots, but I didn't want to risk the Stug, so I pulled it back to keep it safe. In the overall situation, I'm advancing on the right while continuing to fend off the British pressure on the left. There's a few universal carriers and another Challenger pushing up, along with the earlier Cromwell 6. I have my mortar shelling the 17-pounder's position, while the British howitzer continues shelling my infantry in the trees. The Challenger now adds to my infantry's problems with some ranged fire, and the Cromwell and a carrier recce begin pushing towards the centre, but they're hit by my Flak 38 and a barrage from the Nebelwerfer. Just beyond the hangar there, a cluster of newly arrived units are hammered by my mortar, the SK-18 and infantry fire, and they're forced to retreat. But another Pathfinder mosquito attack comes in, targeting one of my infantry squads. I've brought in the Ju-88 again to suppress the new Challenger, and the bombs hit just as a Dingo command car's passing, and the Dingo's destroyed and the Challenger's forced to fall back. That's quite a lucky shot. So I'm still trying to take out the last of the British infantry on the left, and need to deal with the Cromwell in the centre to reduce the British control of the map there. But over on the right I'm still advancing and meeting only isolated resistance there. As my troops on the right advance, they're keeping a 17 pounder suppressed as they advance towards it, and then discover the mortar still in position to the left of the road, so they take that out, and the 17 pounder follows shortly after. And with that I discovered that the right flank is now completely open. You can see the front line marker fallen right way back. My main concern obviously has to be the left now, and I bring in another Ju-87G to target the Challenger. It's been harassing my infantry, and this one goes down with one shot. And you can see in the background my ME-109's strafe recce carrier that's retreating up the road. And off it goes. On the far left, the morale of the command section there is finally broken, and that begins to fall back. But the British howitzer, they're still shelling my infantry, and it's the only thing just now that's really giving me a problem. The STRIX is almost out of gas, but it makes a last attack on the Cromwell, although it doesn't quite manage to destroy it this time. But I do finally manage to do something about the British howitzer that's been harassing me. I hit it with a barrage from a Nebelwerfer, and you can't see it, but I presume that took it out. So my forces are now pushing well forward on the right, and I hope to cut off the reinforcement from that flank soon. I'm bringing a Jagdpanther in at the centre to deal with the British armour, but there's still some units stubbornly resisting out on the left hand side, out of sight behind those trees. There's more British reinforcements heading out to the left, including an off-map observer jeep. So I've decided to keep my infantry pushing forward, looking for the British behind the trees as the reinforcements approach them. I've got no field guns or assault guns left for the moment, so I need to rely on the Jagdpanther and my air assets for support. Once again, the British reinforcements charge forward in their trucks, and this time they're accompanied by the off-map artillery barrage that hits in the hangars on the airfield behind. So quite a devastating attack. And it leaves me with little holding the buildings, so the British could now overpower me in the left, although I do have more infantry reinforcements on the way in. Fortunately though, the command squad with my infantry on the left gives them just enough to continue to resist the British, and eventually their advance stalls. But they do manage to push a Pathfinder squad into the hangars at the airfield. I've decided to try pushing my Fusilier squad forward in the centre to try and find out what the British have holding that bit of the map, giving them control of it. And I send my Ju-88 to attack the Cromwell at the same time as the Jagdpanther takes out the scout car. In the background you can see my ME-109s strafing the observer jeep. I decided that was a more dangerous unit to have, so went for that and allowed another Pathfinder attack to hit my infantry on the left flank. I had planned to have my 109s swing round and attack the Mozzie, but they took anti-aircraft fire and they both evac'd. On the right I'm pushing well towards the British reinforcement area now, and I plan to sweep left from there. And I think that the concealed units on the left flank are probably anti-aircraft guns, perhaps with remnants of some infantry. And my Jagdpanther here gets eyes on the Cromwell and brews it up and then keeps pushing forward. and then spots the command car out to the left, and it takes that out too. Over on the right, a British tank appears from the reinforcement road, and it's engaged by my STUG. Never did identify exactly what kind of tank it was, but it didn't last very long anyway. The Jagged Panther over on the left destroys an armoured car as it continues its advance, and I've taken out a few 17-pounders and Challengers now, so I expect that the Jagged Panther will be invulnerable to anything the British might have left, so long as I keep it at range. So with the way forward clear now, my infantry is pushing up with the Panzer III in support to clear out whatever's hiding behind those trees on the left, and we finally eliminate the Pathfinders in the hangar. Over on the right, 3 British tanks appear charging along the road towards my STUG. One of the tanks is knocked out quite quickly, and a second follows quickly after. The surviving Cromwell though gets into position and starts firing on my Flak 38, forces it to fall back. Over on the left, my advance encounters some British rifles, and unfortunately the Panzer III is in the lead and it falls victim to their anti-tank weapons. And over on the right, I've brought in 2 Ju-87s to engage the Cromwell, but as they approach, the STUG steals the kill and they're left with nothing to do. A strike by my Ju-88 around about the same time eliminates an anti-aircraft gun near my Fusiliers, and my force on the right is now mopping up the rear area and swinging towards the centre. But the momentum's clearly in my favour now, and the neutral view shows that all the British had left were a couple of depleted infantry squads and an anti-aircraft gun on the left, and a heavy machine gun in a hangar in the centre there. I think they might also had a half squad of rifles that pushed past me up the left flank and got into my rear areas, but I don't know whether they survived or not. But my mortar finished off one of the squads on the left as we closed in for the kill, and the British did bring in another Cromwell, but then decided to surrender. So the surrender came with 3 minutes 48 seconds left in the battle, and I've done the math, and I would have had to have controlled 70% of the map for all of that time to have ended with more points than my opponent had. I had 69 points when he surrendered, so it's debatable whether I'd have managed to get the win. But anyway, I'll take it, and having won my last battle by managing to cling on to the bitter end, I won this one because my opponent didn't. But still a win, and I'm happy with that. So thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this battle, and hope you continue to enjoy the series. Please leave me a comment and rate the video, and subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more of this type of content. And I do hope to see you again soon. Cheers.